Third party and your special person's ex showed your photo to a psychic. She went crazy when the psychic revealed who you really are. My beloved child, something happened the moment your photo was placed in front of that psychic that nobody in the room was prepared for. Your special person's ex had arrived with a third party believing they were about to hear something simple about you, something they could understand and walk away from. But the instant the psychic looked at your face, her expression completely changed. She stared at your photo, looked away, then slowly looked at it again as though she had noticed something that should have been impossible to recognize from a picture alone. The room became silent. Your special person's ex leaned forward, waiting for an answer, but the psychic didn't speak immediately. And that silence made everything feel even bigger. Because they had gone there expecting to learn why your special person could not simply forget you, but what they were about to hear would turn that entire question upside down. Don't skip, because the first thing the psychic revealed was not about your appearance, your past, or even your relationship. She said there was something unmistakable about your presence, something that explained why people could distance themselves from you and still find themselves thinking about you later. Your special person's ex immediately asked, "What exactly are you seeing?" The psychic looked directly at them and said, "You brought me this photo because you thought this person was competing for someone's heart. But you're asking the wrong question." That sentence changed the atmosphere instantly. The third party exchanged a confused look with the ex. They wanted names. They wanted answers. They wanted to understand why your special person's feelings toward you seemed impossible to erase. Instead, the psychic pointed toward your photograph and revealed something neither of them expected. Your special person had not been holding on to you because of one memory. They were holding on to the version of themselves that only seemed to appear when you were emotionally close to them. Stay till the end, because that was only the beginning. Something huge is waiting for you, and the next revelation was the one that made your special person's ex realize this meeting had gone completely differently than planned. Then came the detail nobody had told the psychic. She looked at your photograph again and described a strange emotional pattern surrounding your special person. Whenever they tried to convince themselves they were finished thinking about you, something ordinary would bring everything back, a familiar phrase, a certain place, a quiet moment, even a memory they thought they had already buried. The ex froze because this was exactly what they had noticed. Your special person could appear completely normal and then suddenly become distant whenever something reminded them of you. The third party asked whether this was simply unfinished emotion, but the psychic shook her head and said, "There is more. Don't skip." This is where the entire reason they brought your photograph began falling apart. They had assumed you were the mystery they needed to solve. Instead, the psychic suggested that your photo was revealing something about your special person that they had never been able to admit openly. Meeting you had forced them to recognize what genuine emotional connection felt like, and once they recognized it, pretending otherwise became much harder. Your special person's ex wanted the psychic to say that time would erase everything. Instead, she said something that left them speechless. This person didn't enter their life to become another forgettable chapter. They became a comparison. Suddenly, so many things made sense. Every time your special person met someone new, every conversation that should have felt exciting, every connection that should have moved them forward, some quiet part of them was comparing that feeling with what they once felt around you. Not because you were perfect. Not because the past was perfect. but because something about you made them feel seen without having to perform. And that was what the ex had never understood. They thought they were competing with your presence, when in reality they were competing with a feeling your special person could not recreate. Stay till the end, because the psychic had not yet revealed who she believed you truly were in this story. And when she finally began explaining it, the ex's confidence disappeared completely, but the biggest shift came when the psychic pushed your photograph back across the table and asked one question: who told you this person doesn't know their own value? Nobody answered. The third party looked toward the ex, and the ex looked back at the photograph. The psychic continued, saying that the most surprising thing she sensed was not someone chasing attention, trying to prove themselves, or trying to take anyone's place. She saw someone who had gradually learned that real connection should not require endless convincing, and that realization, she explained, was exactly why your energy had become so unforgettable to your special person. Something huge is waiting for you, because then she revealed the part they had never considered. Your special person's deepest realization was not simply that they missed you, it was that they may have underestimated what your presence meant while they still had easy access to it. The ex immediately asked, "So who is this person really?" The psychic paused. Her answer was simple, but it landed harder than anything else she had said. The person in this photograph is the one they thought they could replace until they discovered that connection cannot be copied. Silence. Complete silence. The third party had expected gossip. The ex had expected reassurance. Neither received what they came for. Instead, they walked into a truth that raised an even bigger question. If your special person had finally realized your value, why had they remained quiet? The psychic looked at your photograph one final time, and what she revealed next changed the entire meaning of that silence, because according to her, your special person had already made a private decision about you, and someone else had recently discovered it. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Because what that decision involves is far bigger than the ex ever imagined, and it explains exactly why your photograph was brought into that room in the first place. What happened after that silence was something your special person's ex had never expected to hear. The psychic slowly moved your photograph back toward the center of the table and said there was one detail everyone had misunderstood. Your special person had not been quiet because their feelings disappeared. They had been quiet because something inside them had changed so deeply that they no longer knew how to approach you casually. Suddenly, the third party asked, "Then what decision did they make?" The psychic paused, almost as if she wanted them to understand the weight of the answer before hearing it. Then she said your special person had privately decided that if they ever received another genuine opportunity with you, they would not treat it like something temporary. Don't skip, because this is where the ex's entire expression changed. They had believed your special person was simply remembering you occasionally, but the psychic suggested something much bigger. Your special person had been imagining what life would look like if they stopped running from what they truly felt. They had pictured conversations with you that never happened. They had mentally rewritten moments where they wished they had spoken differently. They had even wondered whether you still felt anything at all. But there was one thought that kept returning stronger than everything else. What if I waited too long? Stay till the end, because the psychic then revealed why the third party had become involved. Someone close enough to observe your special person had noticed the change. They noticed how your name could completely shift their attention. They noticed how certain conversations became uncomfortable whenever relationships were mentioned. And eventually, they realized your special person was carrying a truth they had never said openly. Something huge is waiting for you, because the third party had not come to the psychic merely out of curiosity. They came because they wanted to understand whether you were truly the reason your special person could not fully move forward. Then the psychic said something that turned the entire meeting in another direction. You keep asking what is so special about this person, but you should be asking what your special person became after losing easy access to them. Nobody spoke. She explained that your absence had created clarity. When you were available emotionally, your special person could assume there would always be another conversation, another opportunity, another moment to say what they really meant. But once that certainty disappeared, everything they had taken lightly suddenly became important. Your patience became important. Your attention became important. The way you understood small changes in their mood became important. Even memories they once considered ordinary began feeling completely different. Don't skip, because the ex finally asked the question they had been holding back: do they still choose this person in their heart? The psychic looked directly at your photograph before answering. She said the stronger question was whether your special person had ever genuinely stopped choosing you emotionally. That answer left the ex stunned. They had expected to hear that you were simply a chapter from the past, but instead they were being told that your influence had quietly survived every attempt to move beyond it. Yet the psychic added something surprising. This was not about you waiting forever or proving anything that in fact, she said your greatest power in this situation came from the fact that you were becoming less willing to chase uncertain energy. Your special person could feel that shift. Whether through distance, changed communication, or simply the realization that you had your own future to live, they sensed that you were no longer standing in the same emotional place where they had left you. Stay till the end, because that was exactly what had triggered their private decision. They suddenly understood that another person could eventually recognize your value without hesitation, and the thought of watching you build the life they secretly imagined with someone else forced them to confront everything they had avoided. But there was still one revelation left on that table, and it was the one that made the third party understand why this story was nowhere near finished. The psychic looked at the ex and said, "There is something you don't know about the photograph you brought me." The ex immediately looked confused. They insisted it was simply your picture, nothing more. But the psychic explained that she was not talking about the photograph itself, she was talking about why they had chosen that particular image. Something about it had already affected your special person. That was why the third party had noticed it. That was why questions had started. And that was ultimately why they were sitting there trying to understand you. Something huge is waiting for you, because your special person had apparently seen that image before, and their reaction had revealed far more than they intended. They had gone unusually quiet. They stared longer than expected. And when someone casually asked why the photograph mattered so much, your special person tried to dismiss the question, but their expression had already answered it. The psychic said that moment exposed the truth they had been hiding. They were not remembering who you used to be. They were suddenly realizing who you were becoming without them. Don't skip. Your confidence, your emotional growth, the way you seemed increasingly capable of continuing your life without waiting for anyone, those things had awakened a realization your special person could no longer ignore. The ex had entered that room hoping to discover why you still mattered. Instead, they discovered that your special person may have recently understood something even bigger. Losing your attention permanently would mean losing a connection they had once assumed would always remain available. Stay till the end, because the psychic then leaned closer and revealed one final detail. Your special person had not only made a decision, they had apparently started preparing to act on it. And according to what the third party had already noticed, the first step may have happened without you even realizing it. What they did next, and why your special person's ex suddenly wanted answers so badly, changes everything that comes after this. There was one thing nobody at that table understood yet: the first step your special person had taken was not a message, not a dramatic announcement, and not something anyone could easily notice. It was quieter than that, but far more meaningful. The psychic looked at your photograph again and said your special person had begun removing the excuses they once used to keep themselves emotionally distant from you. One by one, the reasons that once sounded convincing were no longer working. Timing. Circumstances. Pride. Confusion. Other people's opinions. Every explanation had started collapsing beneath one simple realization: if they truly wanted you in their future, eventually they would have to stop hiding behind reasons and start becoming clear about their intentions. Don't skip, because the third party suddenly remembered something. Recently, your special person had asked an unusual question about you. It sounded casual at first, something about whether you had changed, whether you were happier now, whether someone new had entered your life. But now that question looked completely different. The psychic immediately said, that wasn't curiosity. That was someone trying to discover whether the door they once left open had already closed. Your special person's ex went silent. Stay till the end, because they knew something the psychic didn't. Your special person had apparently asked about you more than once. Not obsessively, not openly, but carefully enough that someone eventually noticed the pattern. And every time your name entered the conversation, your special person tried to sound unaffected while quietly listening to every detail. Something huge is waiting for you, because the psychic then explained why. Your special person was no longer wondering whether they had feelings for you. That question had already been answered privately. What they were wondering now was whether they still had the right to return after leaving. So much unsaid. That was the real hesitation. They feared discovering that while they were deciding what they wanted, you had already learned how to live beautifully without them. And then the ex asked the question that changed the atmosphere again: why this person? Why can't they simply feel this with somebody else? The psychic didn't answer immediately. She turned your photograph slightly, studied it, then said something nobody expected. She explained that the connection was not powerful because you had somehow been perfect for your special person. It was powerful because you had reached a part of them that they normally kept hidden. Around other people, they could control what they showed. They could appear confident when uncertain, detached when emotional, completely fine when something inside them was unsettled. But around you, that performance became harder. Somehow, you noticed the pauses between their words. You noticed when their energy changed. You understood things they had not explained yet. And that kind of recognition stayed with them. Don't skip, because the psychic revealed that this was exactly what frightened them in the beginning. Being truly understood meant they could no longer hide comfortably behind the version of themselves everyone else accepted. Your presence quietly challenged them to become more honest, more emotionally mature, more certain about what they wanted. And when they weren't ready for that, distance felt easier. But distance produced something they never predicted. It showed them the difference between peace and avoidance. At first, life without the emotional intensity of your connection may have seemed simpler. Then the silence became too simple. Conversations with others lacked something. Certain moments felt strangely incomplete. And slowly they realized they had mistaken emotional depth for complication. Stay till the end, because the ex's next question exposed exactly why they had come searching for answers. What happens if this person chooses someone else? The psychic looked directly at them and replied, "Then your special person finally learns that hesitation has consequences." That sentence landed differently. Because suddenly this was no longer about whether your special person cared. It was about whether caring silently would ever be enough. Something huge is waiting for you, because your special person had apparently reached the same conclusion, and that was why their behavior had recently started changing. The final revelation came when the third party admitted something they had been keeping from the ex. Before this visit ever happened, your special person had said one sentence about you that nobody was supposed to take seriously. But the third party remembered it because of how different your special person sounded while saying it. They had quietly admitted, "If I ever speak to them again, I can't come back the same way I left." The ex looked stunned. The psychic, however, barely reacted. She simply nodded as though that sentence confirmed everything she had already sensed. Don't skip, because those words reveal the real turning point. Your special person understood that returning with vague feelings, mixed signals, or unfinished intentions would only repeat the past. If they approached you again, they knew they would have to bring something different: clarity, consistency, truth, and most importantly, a willingness to accept that you might not respond the way they secretly hoped. Stay till the end, because this is where your story becomes bigger than the psychic reading itself. The ex and the third party had brought your photograph hoping to discover what mysterious quality kept pulling your special person's attention back toward you. Instead, they discovered that the real transformation had been happening inside your special person all along. Your absence had become a mirror. Your growth had become a message. And your ability to continue forward had forced them to recognize something they had postponed admitting: they did not simply miss having you around. They missed who they were becoming when the connection between you felt real. Something huge is waiting for you, because before the meeting ended, the psychic said there was one final piece nobody had mentioned yet. Someone had recently given your special person information about you, information that completely changed the timeline they thought they had. The moment they heard it, their private plan accelerated. The ex knew exactly what the psychic was talking about, and for the first time, they looked more nervous than curious. Because the information was connected to something happening in your life now, and once your special person heard it, they realized waiting much longer could change everything. The information your special person received was only a few words, but it changed the way they looked at everything. Someone had casually mentioned that you seemed different lately, not distant in a cold way, but stronger, calmer, and far less emotionally attached to what once kept you waiting. That detail reached your special person at exactly the wrong moment for their old excuses. They had believed there would always be more time. More time to understand themselves. More time to decide what to say. More time to wonder whether you would still be there when they finally became ready. But hearing that you were moving forward created a realization they could no longer postpone. Your life was not standing still while they figured themselves out. Don't skip, because the third party finally admitted what happened immediately afterward. Your special person started asking questions they had never asked before. Are they seeing someone? Do they ever mention me? Do they seem happier? Each question sounded small, yet together they revealed something enormous. The psychic looked at your photograph and said, "Now you understand why this picture affected them." Your special person had looked at your photo expecting familiarity, but what they saw instead was change. They saw someone who no longer seemed defined by waiting for their attention. Stay till the end, because that was the moment your special person's private decision became more serious. They realized that if they wanted another opportunity with you, they could not simply appear one day and expect everything to return to how it was. They would have to meet the person you had become, not the person they remembered. Something huge is waiting for you, because the psychic then revealed the thought your special person was struggling with most. What if they finally understand their value better than I understood it? The X looked away immediately. That question explained everything. Your special person wasn't only afraid that someone else might notice you. They were beginning to understand that you might no longer accept uncertainty from anyone, including them. But what happened next turned the focus away from your special person and placed it completely on you. The psychic told the X that they had misunderstood your role from the beginning. You were not supposed to remain frozen inside someone else's indecision. You were not meant to prove why you deserved to be chosen. Your value existed before anyone recognized it, and it would remain whether your special person returned or not. Don't skip, because that statement made the third party ask, "Then why does this connection still feel unfinished?" The psychic answered that unfinished does not always mean two people must immediately reunite. Sometimes it means there is truth that has not yet been spoken, accountability that has not yet been expressed, or a conversation that could finally bring clarity where there had only been assumptions. And your special person knew exactly what they had left unsaid. Stay till the end, because apparently they had already rehearsed that conversation privately. Not once. Several times. They had imagined how they would begin, what they would admit, and how they would explain why they had remained quiet for so long. But every imagined conversation reached the same difficult point: they could not predict your response. That uncertainty was now teaching them what you may once have felt while waiting for clarity from them. Something huge is waiting for you, because the psychic said this reversal mattered. Your special person was finally experiencing the vulnerability of not knowing whether the person they cared about would choose them back. And rather than making them forget you, it was forcing them to become more honest with themselves. The X asked whether your special person would actually speak. The psychic refused to promise what another person would do. Instead, she said something stronger: the question is no longer whether they have something to say. The question is whether they become brave enough to say it before life answers for them. Suddenly, nobody in that room was talking about replacing you anymore. They were talking about timing, truth, and a choice your special person could no longer postpone forever. Then the third party revealed the detail that had been kept hidden since the beginning of the meeting. The photograph they brought was not chosen randomly. It was the exact image your special person had recently seen, and when they saw it, they quietly saved something connected to it. Not the photograph itself, but a thought they wrote down immediately afterward. Don't skip. Nobody knew exactly what the word said except your special person, but the third party had seen enough to remember the beginning. If I get one honest chance, the rest had been hidden before anyone could read it. The psychic looked at the X, then back toward your photograph, and said that whatever came after those words mattered less than what they revealed. Your special person had stopped thinking only about what they had lost and started thinking about what they would do differently if Ano the